right? And the idea here is that our pseudocode is that we want to draw a diagonal line, and here we're going to specify the stroke color. All right, so if we were to go ahead and just hit run, right, with nothing actually typed in our text editor, if we do run, right, we get this small kind of default display window, right? So before we can grab our blue pen or whatever color pen we want to use and draw our line, we first need to specify the size of our sketch pad. And so this is up to you, but at the beginning, in terms of the more specific line-by-line pseudocode, we want to say that here that we want to define the size of our sketch pad. All right, so that's going to be the first step. And then our sketch pad can come in any color we want, right? So the paper of our sketch pad, we want to define the color of the sketch pad. So as opposed to just grabbing our pen and starting to draw, we need to actually specify the properties of the context in which we draw. So that's kind of first couple of steps, and then we're going to go in and say that we want to define our pen color and then draw a line. All right, so up here at the top, this is kind of the macro top-level objective that we want to achieve, and these are the pseudocode steps that we've identified. All right, so if we have all that pseudocode set up, let's go ahead and save our file before we get too far along. So I'm going to save this where all the working files are. This is 01 sketching. So _W for working. All right. So let's go ahead and then start to write our actual our program in the processing-based language. Okay, so let's execute each one of these lines of our pseudocode. So the very first thing is going to be size, open parentheses, and then here we're going to specify the width and height in pixel dimensions. So a good place to start is 400, 400. Close parentheses, end our line in a semicolon. Okay, so your first question might be, well, how did you know what to type? So this one is going to be something that you do very frequently. So with a little bit of experience, you won't have to look it up. But let's say that you didn't know what you needed to type to define the size of the sketchpad. So let's talk a little bit about where you go to find out more information. So if you go to the Help menu, if we go to the reference, this is actually a local version of this portion of the website, wherein you have a number of hyperlinked pages that have more information about everything that you'll be using as specific keywords and methods within processing. So if we were to do a search like Control F and look for size, there's size here and text size that come up. This one looks appropriate, so we can click it. And here this will tell us what the size method is, which defines the dimension of the display window in units of pixels. Gives you some more information as well as some examples. All right. So if you're ever stuck in terms of trying to execute your pseudocode, the reference here, both the local version as well as the one that's on the website under reference, are going to be really great places to look. Okay, so in the same way, let's say that we found the keyword that is going to help us define the color of the sketchpad. And this one's going to be called background, and then we specify a color. So for our purposes, let's do a medium gray and just type in 150. So that's our grayscale definition of color. So 150 out of 255. All right, so that's going to be the color of the background in the sketchpad. And then we can go ahead and start to define the pen color and draw our line. Okay, so in our PowerPoint we saw that the pen color, or the stroke, is defined by simply stroke with an open parentheses. And then we can specify any color we want. If we want to use grayscale, we can do just a single value between 0 and 255. Or if we want to get into more interesting colors, we can type in RGB. So if you like magenta, you could do 255, 0, 255. So fully saturated in the red and the blue, but leaving no green. Or if you like cyan or something similar, you can do 0, 150, 255. And that's where I'm going to leave it. And lastly, we just need to define our line. Okay, so before we do that, let's go ahead and hit run to see how we did in terms of if we had any errors, which if we did, they would pop up down here in the console, and see what we have to work with in terms of our sketchpad. So for starters, it looks like everything's working correctly. I don't have any errors or bugs in my program. And I've got a window that's 400 pixels by 400 pixels. And relative to the display window, the size is going to be the internal part, right? It's going to always have this title bar that's going to reference back to the name of your file, and a small border from your Windows application. All right, and remember that this is 0, 0, and in our case, because of the size of our sketchpad, this is 399, 399. Okay, great. So everything seems to be working. Let's go ahead and draw our line diagonally in this direction. So our line method, which let's go ahead and type in line, open parentheses. It's highlighted blue, so that means it's understood as a method that processing recognizes. If we highlight it, we can also go to the help and see what it's requiring as inputs by right-clicking and saying find in reference. That's also under help, find in reference. Okay, it didn't like that. So we can also go back to our local reference library and look for line. So it's going to be under shape, primitives, line. All right, and it requires x1, y1, x2, y2. All right, so here we're drawing from this point to this point. So we need to specify 4 values. All right, so if we come back here, let's go ahead and define our values as drawing from the upper left hand area, which we could say something like 50, 50. So that's away from the corner, 50 pixels in each direction. And let's draw it to, let's say 350, 350. Make sure we close our parentheses and end our line in a semicolon. I'm going to save and then hit run. And now we have a diagonal line, right? It's not very legible, so I'm going to modify the background a little bit. Maybe say that this should be 200. And now it's a little bit easier to see. All right. So once we've got the basics of our program set up, right, any of these values here that we've specified, the size of our sketchpad or display window, the color of the background, the color of the stroke, and the properties of the line, all those things are changeable. We can play with those and see what we get. Let's go ahead and add in one more little detail to define the line a little bit more specifically. And we didn't have this in the PowerPoint, but we can take a second to go ahead and look at this. We could say that we want to have a stroke weight of a larger value, which will make our pen have a thicker tip. So our line will be thicker in the end. So the keyword here is stroke weight. Make sure you capitalize the W and specify any value here inside the parentheses, and we'll have now a thicker line. So if I were to add in the pseudocode for this, this is to define the tip thickness of the pen. And I will go ahead and save that. And let's go ahead and address any questions you might have before we move on to the next exercise. That's as far as we wanted to get with the sketching exercise. So if you have any questions, drop them into the question window and we'll address them together now. All right, so everyone feels comfortable. Let's go ahead and carry forward then. I'll make sure I save this before we bounce back into the presentation. Okay, so in actuality, on the processing website, when they're talking about your kind of first program, they talk about drawing shapes as the kind of processing equivalent of hello world.